Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here with you today. I hope you can hear me well enough.
Perfectly.
Yes.
Great, thank you. I would firstly like to thank Odile for inviting me, and you can see why it's a great honour to be on the same platform as Odile. I'd also like to thank Ivan for enabling us to get together to talk about the problem and to talk about what can be done. And thank you, David, for your very generous introduction. I find that people who show an interest in rare cancer research often have a specific reason for doing so. Often there's a close link with their family or friends having gone through something similar. And with that comes a realization that people with a rare cancer have a huge struggle just to get the right diagnosis so that they don't lose the precious time that Odile referred to. And then even more difficult, the right treatment for a rare cancer. And partly that's because there are hundreds of different types of rare cancers. So this seems like an impossible challenge to address. An even deeper understanding of these problems is the fact that research is profoundly lacking for the majority of rare cancer types. And remembering that whenever we treat someone, we have to take evidence, and we do that by finding the right people to study, designing the right studies, and then the right trials once we've got some supportive information. Those trials need to have enough cases and finally generate data that can convince reimbursement agencies that the data is meaningful from a small number of cases. That's incredibly hard to do. So usually this is done first with the FDA, and then honestly, the hardest task of all, the Australian Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee, or PBAC. Now they have to guard our tax dollar, which you'd be very pleased about, but it becomes very frustrating when we actually do think we have data for rare cancers and we still can't get those reimbursements and availability of drugs. That means patients have to essentially fundraise to get their treatment or mortgage their house or other things like that. So this is about evidence. We need more, and it costs, just like everything else does. We are aiming to study Australians who have a rare squamous cell cancer, which can occur in any site in the body, and the majority currently lack effective therapy. And thanks to Odile, this will be a focus. And you can see it's still quite broad because there are so many different types of squamous cell cancers in the body. But this money will mean that we have the ability to start to design the best way to do this. So as you've heard, 1 in 3 of the people who die of cancer die of a rare cancer. So it is the new common. And we aim to be able to use our networks, which include something we've built, which David and I lead, called the Australian Rare Cancer Portal, to find these people and bring them into WeHi research. Particularly through the ARC portal, we have the expertise to locate the world's best experts and evidence that already exists but is hard to find about diagnosing, treating, and studying the many types of rare squamous cell cancers throughout the body. We will sequence these rare squamous cell cancers with the world's best genomics techniques to better understand how to treat these people. So one thing that has drastically changed oncology in the last 5 to 10 years is the availability of cheaper genomics. Although I have to say, as soon as it gets cheaper, we go deeper. Now, what that means is we get more value out of the sequencing for each patient, but it doesn't mean we've really got to that, $100 for a whole genome. So by studying the genomics across all types of rare squamous cell cancers, we hope to identify new vulnerabilities in these cancers that predispose them to specific treatments. And that matching is something that's very hard to do, and it has not been done for all these different types of squamous cancers. They sound the same, but cancers interact with the part of the body in which they live, and that body tissue can actually alter the cancer. So the treatments are not going to be the same for each of them. But we want to fast track the development of new treatments, which is so urgently needed. So just a further word about genomics. It's actually about the people who study genomics. So we call them bioinformaticians or genomicists. So studying genomics is just like studying big data and perhaps data analytics in business. There is so much to clean and compare before seeing a relevant signal. It's like seeing the wood for the trees. And bioinformaticians, these super smart people, are rare as hen's teeth. And one reason for that is no sooner do they become really good at their job than some of them are poached by business and people like Google, or entities like Google. So the issue is we do have superb bioinformaticians who choose to remain in biology, and particularly people such as Tony Pappenfuss, who jointly leads our rare cancer program with me, because I chose to jointly lead with a bioinformatician, which is probably a less common thing for biologists to do, but we receive the funding together, we meet together every fortnight, our teams work together hand in hand all the time. So one example of squamous cell cancers where we are starting to make an improvement is squamous cell cancer of the cervix. Now, I thought I'd talk about that because you've probably all heard about the fact that we have the vaccine, and that vaccine is making dramatic inroads in prevention, which is what Ivan and John Tickell and Odile all speak about as being so important. But prevention only does so much, because there will still be cases, and we still have legacy cases from prior to what is essentially childhood vaccination in the teens. So in cervical cancer, we've started to understand that chemotherapy is not the main benchmark to fall back on, but in fact, immunotherapy that you've probably heard about through melanoma is a way forward. We're starting to generate sufficient data internationally to underpin FDA approvals and EMA, that's European. We don't yet have that approval in Australia, but we hope it will come. Now, that has only come through large studies of what is essentially a rare cancer. Cervical cancer is rare, but it's not super rare, like the sort of cancers that Odile is talking about and that we know exist in other parts of the body. So we need your donations to make a difference, and your ability to pass on this request for donations to your circle and your community. Donations allow us to do more, and that is the only way we can generate the evidence to produce more effective treatments that are funded for people with a rare squamous cell cancer. This affects nearly every organ in the body, as I've said a number of times, and I hope that's a takeaway for you. And most of those types are rare. You never know when you or yours will suddenly, without warning, rely on who and what has gone before. People like Odile, who's made this extraordinary effort, not only to fundraise, but to give us the benefit of her insights. And I'd really will take away from today many of Odile's comments that she has just made, including the fact that cancer, is a mind game as much as a physical endurance test, because there are profound differences that people can make, just as we've seen from Odile today. So thank you.